The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, Prasa, has clarified its position regarding newly appointed CEO Zolani Matthews. A recent report by GroundUp stated that the appointment was against the company's age policy. Matthews is 64 years old. Leonard Ramatlakane is the Prasa board chairperson and joins us now. Very good evening to you, Mr. Ramatlakane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We've seen that the minister has hit out at these reports, saying that focusing on this is not only sensational, but moves away from the core issues. Why do you believe there's a concentration of this, and why do you stand by your man, so to speak?
Well, thank you very much, Tsepiso, and of course the viewership. Well, of course, we as the board, we have a focus, and our focus based on our mandate is to get the trains to run. That's what our mandate is, and to make sure that the poorest, the majority of the working class have a transport, public transport, accessible one, safe, that don't bring them to a workplace. That's the work that's our focus that we have. As you know, that one of the key things that we've been battling as Prasa is to have a permanent group CEO. And of course, that we had to appoint a group CEO within the 90 days, as we have put ourselves under that pressure to find a group CEO, and that we have done. And that, of course, the minister as well as the cabinet has agreed, supported the recommendation that came from the panel that we set up. So the appointment has been done above board. Out of 58 people candidates that applied, that has been open and clear. And of course, we have interrogated the policy. There is no policy that has been breached.
So, Lynn, let's go to the core issues. I mean, there is agreement on the fact that there's a host of issues that challenges Prasa that have been named as poor performance, rampant corruption, poor culture of accountability, and there's also irregular, wasteful expenditure. And one problem that you also mentioned, that you've had, I think, an acting CEO for a period of about 10 years. It's been a long time since you've had a permanent CEO. What is the first port of call for Mr. Matthews? Have you and the board had a discussion of what is a first priority at this stage?
Well, the Group CEO priority at the moment, the Group CEO is hard at work, is getting to understand what each and every executive are busy with. Now the core, there are 5 things that are critical that we need to deal with. Is basically, in terms of the Group CEO, was to make sure that we have a Group CEO, we have a proper executive that is a stable executive, that is up to the task in terms of the making sure that they are able to perform the task, and the skills associated with that, appropriate skills, as well as the policy, proper policy framework that they have to operate so that you root out the corruption. If you have a stable policy, you are able to know what the supply chain management policy is. All of that will contribute in rooting out and neutralizing the kind of corruption. Number 2 that we have, which is basically in line with is the mandate. Our mandate as a Prasa is to run trains, as to make sure that we provide that particular transport. That is the board, and as well as the Group CEO has the same common objective in terms of what we want to achieve, to make sure that we provide trains to the poor and poorest. In the context of that, make sure that we fix the railway lines, the problem that has happened as a result of the vandalism that has taken place, the damage, the routing, in fact, the pulling out of the copper wires, stripping the infrastructure. That's part of what's making sure that we run trains. 3 is to make sure that we have a security, because you can't run that business without a security, both in terms of infrastructure and people that are using the
Can I just jump in there, Mr. Ramatlakane, and talk about that, especially improving operational performance? You talk about the fact that the business of running trains is your first and foremost job, so to speak. So there's a suggestion that you should be focusing not only on the train stations but the rail reserves, improving on maintenance and security, that this is actually what your first port of call should be. What do you intend doing, when and how? And are you looking at getting some new suppliers on board?
Thabiso, thanks for that question. We have obviously been engaging with Transnet as well in terms of their capacity to come on board to complement the Prasa capacity in bringing back or repairing the service that has been damaged. That agreement has been reached with Transnet as well as National Treasury for deviation in terms of making sure that we can find, particularly focusing on the central line in Cape Town and removing the people that are squatting in a rail reserve, and so that we are able to make a way for the rail to be repaired so that the train can run. Mabopane, the same thing. The Mabopane line is another national priority, which we are focusing in making sure that both the refurbishment that the minister has spoken about when those both lines were shut down are done, and the rail and the line is 100% running by the end of this year.
Let's talk about security.
Meaning that they would have repaired everything.
The security interventions across all corridors, this is something that you've also mentioned as a priority. There's a suggestion that with the amount of money that Prasa is spending on companies who guard their rail networks and their trains, that money should go rather to the SAPS. Has this been brought to you? Is this something that you're possibly considering?
We have, thank you very much, Sipi. So we have engaged the SAPS. We've spoken to the National Commissioner. We've spoken to all these provincial commissioner to complement security. When we speak about Prasa security, we speak about an integrated service where you have the railway police playing their particular role, where you have the reservists. We also have asked them to deploy some of the reservists to complement or augment the security. 1,500 is the number we've mentioned to them that is national, to dealing with 4 regions, Western Cape, Gauteng, KZN and Eastern Cape. That plus the Prasa security insourcing, as you know, that is based on the earlier discussion. Minister has engaged that there should be 3,000 security insource. That 3,000 is almost complete now. Plus, on top of that, as a force multiplier, is getting the PR2P community participation along the line, along the rail line where they are, mobilizing communities to be another force multiplier, including making sure that they do a patrol, they make sure they identify the criminals in those areas around the station where they live. In fact, we launched that particular program already in Cape Town last week, Monday, and then we're going to Joburg next week.
Now,
all 4 regions are going to have that. We're going to, at the end of the day, Tsepiso, if I can just finish that point, we will have 5,000 plus community participation in this program throughout the country that are going to be complementary to the police, to the security, Prasa security, as well as the reservists.
Okay. Now, you have, as part of Prasa's capital program, working with other state entities, but in the short term, does that refer to the time period, as in the length of time, or rather just how quickly you intend to affect this? Because if you are to have some sort of relationship with municipalities or looking at rail reserve parameters, for instance, that should surely be an intricate project that it takes quite a while to really sort out.
Yeah, well, we have a plan, of immediate, intermediate, and then of course in the immediate, medium term, and of course in the long term, because a rail business can be very long time to see results. But of course, as you know, that we have now already introduced the service in the 16 corridors across the country, and the next phase we have 46 corridors all in all, Now we have already introduced 16 that are back on train, on stream, plus a Cape Town halfway house from Cape Town to Langa, and that is now beginning to operate. We're waiting now to remove people. So 16 corridors are on stream. We're working on the 10 in this new financial year to add another 10, and of course the another 10 in the following year. All of these where we need to have an intergovernmental approach. We have an intergovernmental approach, but by and large, Prasa has its own competency to provide and to deal with the matters. That's why we have now created a relationship with Transnet, so that we are able to do what we need to do without necessarily having to go outside of that particular parastatal, as you like, to make sure that the turnaround is much shorter. Turnaround we have shortened the turnaround because we want a quick delivery of public transport, particularly the rail as a backbone of a public transport.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. That is Leonard Ramatlakane, Prasa Board Chairperson.